I'm trying to remember what I'm
We're trying to get on the Toscanini
Oh,
connection.
so then I come to New York, and I had to break my contract with NBC, and I was just sort of in New York, and some man meets me on the street through May Higgins. May Higgins is old friend, little old Italian man, and he has a friend who is going to put on some concerts on Mutual. And this is the La Rosa stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know, he says, I want you for 6 or 7 broadcasts. Now, I had nothing. I had no contracts. I had nothing at the time.
Yeah.
And so I was getting, I don't know, they paid me about $400 a show. And, you know, in those days, that was a lot of money.
Oh, sure.
So Wallenstein heard me, Alfred Wallenstein. So he calls me in, and he said, I would like you to, would you sing some Mozart for me? And I had studied Mozart with Leo Kolp in Chicago, and I said, yes, I would. You know, I thought he was going to let me sing maybe one aria or something, or song, or something like that. So I sang something from Mozart for him. I can't remember what it was, and he said to me, I'm going to do a Mozart series. And I said, oh, he says, I want to do a lot of obscure things by Mozart, and he said, I would like to know if you'd be interested in doing some. I said, yes. He says, well, which would you like me to do? He says, I want you to do all of them. So I did La Clemenza di Tito. I did Bastien and Bastien, which you know, nobody
knew.
And Zauberflöte, Magic Flute, 3 operas. And then I did The King's Henchman, Deems Taylor, with Jan Pierce. All in this whole series. Toscanini heard me, and he asked Wally.
Wallenstein.
Alfred Wallenstein. He said, I would like to hear this De La Chiesa sing. He said, so they took me up to the apartment, 333 East 57. I'll never forget that place. And Margherita De Vecchi, who was Toscanini's, like, the protectress, she was like Amazon. It's scary to death just to even look at her, because she could be frightening. And she was just like his protector, you know, and she kept people away from him. And anyway, I go into the room, and Maggie says to Virginia Wallenstein, well, come on, let's leave, Virginia. Let's leave them alone. That's the way she would talk.
Yeah.
Real tough. And so the maestro, I'm sitting on the sofa, and the maestro's sitting there. He says, he goes over to the piano. He starts kind of doodling around. He was a real actor, too.
Yeah.
I mean, he was real. And he liked pretty girls, too.
I know. Well, yeah, that's,
and, you know,
that's famous.
And he kind of doodled all over them. He says, senta un po', he said to me in Italian. He says, how about, would you please sing a few bars of Eichfühle, you know, the aria. So before I know it, I'm singing with him, and he's playing, and I'm singing, and then he said to me, well, you know, very nice. He liked my voice and everything, and I was really, I think I was in a stupor like I was when I won the contest. You know, when somebody calls you to do something, you do it, but you really don't know.
You don't have a sense of the moment. You don't have a sense of how
you're kind of
serious
traumatized. You're going through the motions. And so I did all this, and he said, I want you to sing with me. What's the matter, honey?
How come you don't have this?
I don't know. I might have one downstairs. I don't know. Maybe I have it somewhere.
There's a beautiful picture of you.
There is? Anyway, so
the first woman ever honored by the Lambs Club.
Correct. That is quite an honor. I consider that a great honor. And anyway,
look,
so yeah, I have that picture.
I know you do, but
isn't that a beautiful picture?
I'm surprised that you don't have this.
Oh, I'll have to get one of those. Anyway, so I don't know. Maybe I've got one downstairs. You have to look through all my books and boxes. Oh my goodness.
If you don't have this, then I will.
Can you get one? We can get one.
I will give it to you.
No, let him keep that down.
No.
You keep that. If you want to ever do a story on me,
yeah. Anyhow, so
anyway, so he said to me, he said, I want you to sing with me. I want you to sing the Verdi thing with me. So I never forget. I was walking down the street, and I lived on Central Park West at the time. No, I lived at 58th Street then, I think, West 58th. And I go home, and I'm thinking, you know, nothing ever happens to me the first day and the second day. I say, Toscanini asked you to sing with him. You know,
it started to register.
It started to register. Do you realize what happened to you? You know. So then I sang that with him, and of course I was telling these people at this affair that night. I kind of made it brief because Albanese was going on and on and on and on, and it was. And Meryl finally cut in on her because Rosen said to me, "She's doing a biography." And to me, standing next to me, and. Bob cut in on her, and so I said he wanted me to do the Brahms, And I said, Maestro, I can't sing the Brahms Requiem with you. He says, what do you mean you can't sing the Brahms? I said, because I'm a very emotional person, I said, and I'll get up there, and I know I can sing it all in one breath, but I'll get so scared standing up there in front of you. I said, you want me to do all, like 4 or 6 or 8 bars, I don't even want to do all in one breath. I said, I can't do it, because I know my breath is going to go like this. I was right, too. And he made me sing it in the studio, and he went over, and I could sing it in one breath all the time. He said, you're going to tell me what you can sing? He started a fight with me. I said, I'm only telling you for your own good. I said, I'm being honest with you, because I think you should get one of those voices that's a disembodied sound that goes, goes up like that, that's real, like floating up there, that sings it that way. He says, because I'm too emotional to sing Brahms. He made me sing it with him. He said, you're going to tell me what you can sing. Well, I sang it with him.
Yeah, you did the Brahms Requiem and you did the Lombardi. What else did you do with
him
on the radio?
He wanted me to do the Wagner. He wanted me to do the Sieglinde,
the first
duet
the
with
love
Sigmund,
duet,
the love duet. He said, I want you to do that. And so I went into Mark Slavine and I said, you know, the maestro wants me to sing with him again. I said, and you know, to me, to sing with Toscanini means a lot. He says, hey, he says, you've got 96 concerts coming up this year. He said, if you cancel out those concerts, he says, you're going to get sued by everybody. He says, you mean to tell me that you would give all this up to sing with the maestro? I says, yes, I would. Because I said, you know, how many chances does one get to sing with? He says, well, you're not going to do that, because he said, then you're going to get canceled. He says, by us too. He was furious about that. So I had to go. I couldn't. I said, maestro, I said, as much as I want to do it with you, I says, I can't. I said, because they told me that I'm going to get sued. I have all tutti questi concerti, I said to him in Italian, 96 concerts I had.
You had that heavy a concert schedule? This is right during the war.
Yeah, I had 96 concerts.
Was that like every other 5 times a week?
No, I was booked all through the country.
I know, but I mean that virtually means singing 5 times a week, though.
Was
4 or 5 every other day at least.
Like every other day, and then
in a different city.
And then I also did broadcasts on the West Coast at the same time. I was doing broadcasts, and I was exhausted when I got there.
Every state in the union.
Practically every state in the union.
I wonder if you ever sang in my. I come from Burlington, Vermont.
Oh yes, I did. Sure, I sang in Burlington. And you know, the terrible part of it is that I gave up my radio shows because of Toscanini. Because, see, I used to visit him all the time. He called me on the phone all the time. He would talk to me. He would call me at 10 o'clock at night, 10:30. I mean, you know, he would call because he never slept.
Yeah, I know, but he's famous for being...
he would go to bed like, he would sleep maybe 4 hours. He'd go to sleep about 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock or 3.
He's up at 7.
And up at, 3, like his husband. You know, my husband sleeps on the chair. But then he's another one that gets to bed, you know, and gets up very early. And he would tell me all these stories about his career when he was young, you know, how he only had 1 pair of pants to wear, and how poor he was, and how difficult his life was, and, you know,
on and on.
All and on and on and on. And
did he have an ulterior motive?
Oh, I don't know. You know, I had a friend, Letizia Buitoni, you know, the Buitoni people, spaghetti people. Yeah. Letizia and Giovanni were very close friends, and she would say to me, you know, he likes you very much. All you should do is always flatter him. Always flatter him, because of course, she was a typical continental European type.
Yeah,
know?
And she knew
she knew the ropes. She said, all you have to do, I said, well, what am I supposed to do? I'd say, oh, maestro, oh, you were so wonderful. You know, talked to him over the phone. What could he do? He was so old.
Yeah.
I mean, what could he think of anyway? I don't know. But he really inspired me so much that I said, oh, I'm going to give up my radio shows, and I have to go out and do concerts to prove myself, which is so dumb. Because if you stop to think of when he was young, you know, the times were different as they are now.
Yeah.
It's when I was young. They're different now, even
That's right.
when I was young.
The business is different.
Cosa per I suoi tempi. Everything for its own time.
Yes.
And it was dumb of me to give up my radio shows, because when I went on the road, forget it. I mean, you sang in all of these. I'm not talking about the 96 concerts. That was different already. Afterwards, this became like you sang in Squeedunk. I mean, how many big cities are there? There are not that many big cities.
Yeah.
And you're under the worst conditions, because you're traveling and you're getting to places that have rotten auditoriums or terrible hotel accommodations.
bad restaurants.
Bad restaurants. And
know.
I'm thinking to myself that and you know, Jan Pierce said I was crazy. Because Mike DiPace said to me, my manager, who was Jan's manager too, he says, you're crazy. Jan said, you mean you're going to give up that kind of money?
On radio, you would.
Radio, I mean, you're reaching all these people
With
in
one
one night that it
concert,
would have
sure.
taken me 50 years to reach all those people on concert tour.
That was a terrible
It was a
mistake.
dumb move on my
Terrible
part.
mistake.
And you know, I think that had I taken a vacation instead of quitting, as I did, I probably would have given it second thought, because at that time Frank Hummert was Blackett, Sample and Hummert. They were the biggest agency in radio at the time. And he was appalled that I was going to give up these shows. Because I said to him, I'm not giving them up because I don't like
And
you.
you were well paid. You weren't
Oh,
getting
I was
any
getting a lot of money. And he said,
You
I said, I just want to go out because I want to get a change of scenery. He says, he used to call me Butch. He says, Butch, he says, you know, he said, you've got to, why don't you go down to my place in Virginia and take a rest and think it over? And I didn't do that. I was very, you know, we do a lot of stupid things. If you believe in astrology, maybe my planets
maybe
were all
wrong
crossed. Something was crossed in my head. I think I had a lot of problems with my family. They were very demanding. And I think, you know, you get to a point in your life, if you start very young like that, and you're always under pressure, something's got to give.
Yeah.
You get so that you're not your own person. You have a life. See, people write about all the glowing things about their lives, but comes a time in your life when you don't even know who you are. You know, this William Hurt says he's going to take 2 years off to find out who he is. I think I understand that. Although he's older than I was, I think.
At that time, yeah.
Yes. I think that you're under so much pressure that you really don't see straight anymore. You see things you're just not thinking clearly.
So it was really a tough grind with the
Very tough grind.
either on the road or even the radio thing, day after day, just grinding out product.
And you were always having to keep yourself right on top of everything. Well, when I had my television shows, that was the toughest I think that I ever worked in my life, because I was working my mind and my body, and you know, talking to salespeople,
politicians,
talking to people who had the product, singing, learning new material, learning all the stuff that I had to sell, the pertinent points that you had to use, and I would do it all off the top of my head. I never read anything. And then acquainting myself with the people who were going to come in. If they had a book, I would have to try to scan that, and so that I was knowledgeable and not sounding like a phony, you know, getting up there like you have done research.
Yeah, no, but oftentimes on the TV interviewers, when somebody's pushing a book, the interviewer, I mean, obviously cannot have had time to have read the book. It's just off the press, and so somebody has read the book and has given him some
correct
some key things interesting things to bring about. But that's a grind. I mean,
and it doesn't come out too good that way.
But I mean, I'm never convinced that Johnny Carson read that book, or
but he's a very good interviewer.
Oh, unbelievable. I mean,
I think he's excellent.
The best, but it's just impossible to. I'm sure to be fresh all the time.
I think so. I think it's very difficult, and
I like Oprah. I watch her, and I'm amazed at how. I mean, you have to to do the kind of work you were doing. You have to be an inherently bright person. I mean, your instincts have to be.
Yes, and you have to be. You have
to know when to shut up. You have to know when to develop what's interesting, what's not interesting, how to change subjects if you're going no place.
That's right, and you get the signals, you know, tighten it up or zip or stretch. I mean, you get all the things, the cues, and then another thing that you have to do is you have to listen so that you can inject. That person may be saying something that isn't even written down there, and you pick up what he's saying, and you can go from whatever was there to something entirely different.
And you have to listen to what they're saying. And,
that's right.
And sometimes, you know, after so much of it, I'm sure it's you go on automatic.
Yes, and I think that what I had, I think when I was in my talk shows, was the gift of putting people at their ease. I found many people who were difficult to interview. I mean, you know, certain personalities that are very uptight, and some of them you can't get too much out of. And they're really they're wary of you too, because sometimes they think you might be an interviewer who's trying to make capital on them and do something controversial. like Phil Donahue does.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that. See, so they would never relax with somebody like that. They're on their guard. Whereas with me, I would get them so relaxed that they would talk to me like we were old friends.
Like when you had Eisenhower on, what, was that before he was president? Or
That was after he had been president.
So.
You mean Reagan? You're talking about?
No, no. I saw you have
Eisenhower.
Eisenhower.
Well, that was when I was helping raise funds for him in Washington. Oh, he was magnificent.
Was he president then?
He had been president.
Did you read recently, a couple days ago, and I guess it's true, and I'm not making any point one way or another, but Reagan apparently is at the point in his life, because of his age and whatever, that everything now is on cue cards. He has even his little small talk when like people come in, how's your family or something, it's all written out for him. They don't trust that he can even put together,
Maybe
small
his
talk.
mind is maybe getting.
Well, that's the implication of this.
And yet I hear
revelation.
I hear other things that they say that's not true about him. That's a lot of.
It's true, but I heard a press conference the other night.
What is he, 77?
Yeah, it's amazing.
He's another amazing. He's the oldest president
We've had,
that we've ever had, and yet he looks younger than some of the youngest ones.
He does. He's a great communicator. He has the personality.
He has it's a gift. It's a very special.
It's the warmth, and I think personality in anything sometimes makes up for the lack of something else. It's just you can't put together what it is that makes that person great.
It's true. I mean, like when they pick people to be on TV shows as guests or as contestants, they don't look for the most brilliant people. They look for people who are interesting.
That's right.
Who they, at least they think are going to be interesting.
Yeah, and that's true.
I know that if I could apply to go on one of those game shows, let's say Knowledge of Opera or something, and I wouldn't be selected versus somebody who's more picturesque or more. Like remember when they had on the $64,000 question the opera contestant?
Yes.
They found
That
a
old
little old
shoemaker.
Italian shoemaker.
Yeah.
That's more interesting than having a hot shot who knows a lot
He
of.
became very famous.
Yeah.
He was
Gino
colorful.
Prato, yeah.
That's right, Gino Prato. He was colorful.
Yeah.
And then with that little voice that we talk with an accent and everything.
And that's the way it was packaged, as an Italian
See,
immigrant.
You're very
Did he,
perceptive.
I'm vaguely, did he win?
Yeah.
Well, he was. Yes, he did. And but the question was that he won on the $64,000. And to me, that would have been the easiest question. Well, they said, what opera had its world premiere April 25th, 1926? And who wrote the opera and who conducted the opera? Of course, it was Puccini's Turandot, with Toscanini. Yeah, I mean, it's a very famous date in opera history. If you have a sense of those things, and that was the question.
I mean,
he knew it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know it.
Well, if you know opera history, 1926.
Well, 26, it had to be Puccini.
Yeah, there's a certain logic to it. See, I think in those terms. You don't think in terms of the dates, and he could just most probably visualize the date, and they weren't going to pick something totally unknown. It had to be something that would mean something to the audience too. So it had, and of course it was a Toscanini, so that they could get some names that would mean something to the public when he answered the question. So when he shot back, that was Puccini's Turandot, Toscanini conducting La Scala. Those are all buzzwords, and that makes it interesting.
Yeah. To me, when I was a very young girl, and I'm going back to Raiza's time, and I was in such awe of these people, because to me they were like gods. There was a glamour about them that was different, because they were not. They weren't out in the public as much as they are today.
Yeah, there was no television.
Yeah, there wasn't as much
media.
Yeah, they weren't overexposed, so that you got a sense of when you met them, like you were seeing something that was, something way up here.
An aura.
An aura. Like the first time I saw Rosa Poncel, I was just starting out in radio at the time, and my brother-in-law was then one of the engineers at CBS in Chicago, and she came to Chicago to do the Sears Then and Now show, and I did that show also. But I was just a young singer star. Yeah. She was a big star, and she came into my teacher's studio. She knew Forrest very well. I never will forget this woman. She had lost all that weight. She had just married this man from Baltimore.
Jackson.
She was sensational, and of course she sang "Kiss Me Again," you know,
Yeah.
which was
Her-
she got
her
up
signature.
and my brother-in-law, you know, saw me. I was so awed by her. He just looked like ready to fall over the orchestra
Well, she
pit,
was,
which just to even
one
to
of the all-time
well,
greats.
just to see this woman. And then when she came to hear me sing, when I sang in a morning musical in Baltimore, she came down to hear me from her house, Villa Pace, and then takes me to her home. I had the privilege of being with Rosa Poncel for about 3 or 4 hours by myself.
My God.
And she showed me her whole house and took me up to her bedroom and showed me her bed. And she said, "Vivian, you see that bed?" She had it looked like an Egyptian bed, very,
Yeah.
you know, glamorous like she
Okay,
was.
yeah.
She said, "I spent so many sleepless nights in that bed," she said, "because every time I'd sing, she was so nervous, too."
Yeah, she was a nervous wreck.
Very nervous wreck. She said if she saw a high C coming even later, you know, that's why she wouldn't sing some of the operas. She didn't sing Tosca for that reason, because it had a high C. At that time, I think she was getting frightened or something.
Yeah, but she, you know, she never did it. You know, she never performed any Puccini on stage.
Isn't that funny?
She didn't.
Yeah, she never did Tosca.
With this magnificent...
And she only did Aida twice at the Met because, and she did it a few times more on tour. The story is that she broke on the high C in Patria Mia.
Yeah.
And it became sort of like,
mental.
yeah. She
Well,
obviously had the note in her voice, but
The high
the
notes.
thought of it just, well, you could most probably.
I know that.
You,
I
you
know
under-
that feeling too. My teacher had that same problem when he did one. I think the
Like
aria
a
from
football quarterback would
the.
become
Where's the aria of
tongue-tied.
Faust that's got the high
Yeah,
C?
the high C in Faust. yeah.
Faust. Every time he would sing, well, he could sing it in the studio, and then he was going. My teacher was still singing
Yeah.
professionally too, and he said when he'd come to that high C,
You just
he'd
tighten
crack.
up
And yet he could come in the studio at 9 o'clock in the morning
and do it.
and sing that high C with no trouble at all. See, it's mental. Remember I told you that I said about singing? Singing, you can become so
No,
frightened.
It's the same with athletes, like a
Sure.
quarterback, you know, he becomes
They
gun-shy.
get tight.
He gets intercepted too many times, and he's afraid to throw it.
That's right. And singing, most of it's mental.
Yeah.
That's
It
why I
is,
said
it is.
personalities, getting back. That personality that gives you the confidence in yourself. And you feel that when you are in touch with that person, somehow they give you something that gives you confidence. And there are other people who take it away from you. You know what I'm trying
Yeah,
to say?
sure, yeah.
There's some people that you go around and you feel like you want to get away because you feel down.
They're pulling you down.
They're pulling you down. They're pulling you down. And I could be very depressed, and I would call my mother on the phone, and she'd say, "Ah, you know you can sing." I mean, I would be frightened about something, and I'd say, "Oh, Mama, you know, I've got to sing this," and "Oh, I don't know," you know, on the phone. She'd say, "Ah," the minute I heard my mother's voice, I don't know, it was like, it was such a
Restored
wonderful
your
feeling.
confidence.
She would restore my confidence in myself. And that's why I say I think singers are very, like children, they're very sensitive. If you see somebody in the audience that looks cross-eyed at you, your stomach goes, can be very upsetting. You can just have someone just say one terrible thing about you, and you have 47 good things, and that one bad thing
Gets
is the
to
thing
you.
that sticks in your head. You know, I think we have weak minds, too, singers have. We're like
No,
children.
but I think your husband hit athletes, musicians, performers. The things that you can do automatically, or in the practice, or in the studio, which you can almost produce at will, you can't necessarily produce under the pressure of the performance.
That's right.
Because there's something goes into your mind. Oh, the high C is coming up, and my performance is going to rise or fall on that high C.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, a note that you can just pick out of the air,
Yep.
you get tight, and then you flub it.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And that's why singing is so difficult. I
Your
mean,
voice, you went up to, I presume, you went up to what, D, E?
I could not to an E. No, I never
No.
went to an E. I could go up to a D. I could because there was dogs. Yeah.
In La Juive, you went
La
to D.
Juive has to go to a D. yeah.
Now there's a duet.
I don't even remember.
I understand there's a duet where you and Rochelle do it in unison scales up to a high D.
Yeah.
Does that?
Yeah. I don't remember too much about it, but I know that I sang.
You only did La Juive with Ray's and Marjorie Lawrence.
And Marjorie Lawrence. I think I did about 4 performances now that I think of it. Because if I did 2 with Raisa, I think I must have done in the following year.
Just one with Lawrence.
One with Lawrence.
One with Lawrence and 2 with Ray's in Chicago, unless you did it someplace else.
And when I did it with Lauren, she was still walking, and she was
Yeah.
very vibrant.
Yeah.
And she said at that time, I said to her, how do you have that stamina? Because that's a tough role
Yeah.
for the soprano, you know, the dramatic
Yeah.
soprano. She said, when you're an old cow like me, she says you'll have the stamina. I never forgot the answer she gave me. And she wasn't really an old
No,
cow.
she was young then.
She says, when you become an old cow, she must have thought I was so young.
Marjorie Lawrence at that
Yeah.
time must have been wasn't even 30 years old.
Yeah.
But you were only 20.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. She said, when you're an old cow like me, she says you'll be able to do that too. And I didn't know what she meant by that because I didn't think she was an old cow.
No, she wasn't. Marjorie
But
Lawrence.
maybe I thought she was older because she seemed older.
In 1936, Marjorie Lawrence couldn't have been more than 30 years old.
Shortly after that, she.
Well,
couldn't
no,
walk.
the polio was 1941 or 42.
Oh, that's terrible. So.
No, of all the musicians, I think the singers have the toughest time of all, because they're their own instrument.
Yeah, the
That's
instrument
the
is
thing. That's right.
in their throat.
That's right. You can have a voice.
You can have a great instrument and it's just like having a great Steinway piano and you don't play it properly, you know.
Yeah. But the voice.
Some people have the instrument and they can't sing.
My teacher once said to me, Bigandi used to say, you never lose your voice. You know, when I was a
Yeah.
student, he says, la voce non si perde mai. We never lose our voice. But he says we can lose the ability to use it because something happens up here. And you know that, what's his name that sang with Callas? Remember when they did that whole thing on her?
Di Stefano?
No, Di Stefano, the baritone begins
London?
with a B.
No.
You know.
Bastianini?
Bastianini was before her. Short name. He has a short name.
Oh, Gobi. Tito Gobi?
Tito Gobi.
Tito Gobi,
Yeah.
yeah.
Tito Gobi, I mean with a G. He said, remember when he said, I never forgot what he did say. He said, she did not lose her voice, she lost her heart. He said, this didn't go, he said, this went. Her heart. So the thing is that she had so many disappointments, I guess, in her life, that she had the ability
Her confidence was...
yeah, and then I think the heart wasn't in it anymore. And when you lose that too, you know.
What do you think about there was a big thing about, she was a big woman and then she lost all that weight.
That weight, yeah.
Do you think that really has any effect on the singing?
Well, what do you think of Scotta's voice? Do you think it affected Scotta's voice? Because she was heavy.
I mean, her slimming down?
Yeah.
No, well, actually, her voice got richer when she was thinner, but then, of course, she got older. The
voice,
aging process.
Yeah, began to wobble. The voice became very...
You know, when we saw
I
this,
liked her, though.
when we saw this movie...
Did you like Scotta?
Oh, she's a fine artist.
Oh, I think she's...
You know,
I
when you
used to. I
saw
love
this
her.
movie Moonstruck, Tabaldi is doing the singing,
You must have loved her.
and Bergonzi.
Now, see, she was a good friend of May Higgins, too.
Tibaldi. Yeah.
Now, what happened to Tibaldi was when her mother died, she never sang well after that.
No, she had a vocal crisis. For years she took off. She couldn't get her...
Well, but I understand she had a child, too, an illegitimate child with somebody.
Well, that I don't know.
Yeah, I heard that she'd had a child with someone who was
beautiful woman,
married.
wasn't she?
Yeah, she was pretty. She was very tall. That she had a child, and I think she was all broken up over this romance. Well, like Rethberg.
Yeah.
What made Rethberg lose her voice was
Pinza.
Pinza.
Yeah.
She lost her voice because she was heartbroken. The woman was absolutely Rethberg.
No, I mean, Pinza?
Yeah, she and Pinza had a big
Rethberg.
affair.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
it was one of the
You didn't
most
know that?
famous.
They lived together for years. She made him a great concert singer. She did. She taught him the ropes with concerts.
You have an unusual voice.
He was with NBC when I was with NBC with Doc Morton. We were singing with the San Francisco Opera back in 1943. I don't know, 44.
Yeah,
Whatever.
you were with San Francisco 44 and 45.
Yeah, and Morton was taking him around to the studios to try to get him to do get a contract for motion pictures, and nobody wanted him.
Right.
And at that time, Mark Levine told me that he was getting $400 a concert, and he was not filling the halls. Then he came back and did South Pacific.
That's what made
Yeah.
And suddenly the man was a big star.
Superstar.
And you know
Superstar,
he
yeah.
was always a good singer.
Yeah.
A great actor.
And it took a show like South
And it
Pacific.
took a show like South Pacific
Just
to
goes
make him
show
a
you.
household word. See, we live in a crazy world,
Yeah.
don't we? You could be the greatest singer in the world,
There he
and
was, a
people
great
are
singer.
not that smart. I think a
Yeah.
lot of time people really don't know.
Well, there's the case of media.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you feel about television media I mean, what it's done to careers like Pavarotti, Beverly Sills, people who, with the injection of television, plus their other talents, was able to sort of put them into.
Oh, I think it's done fantastic. Look what it's done for, of course, what it's done for all of them. If they had not had television, they would not have been
Yeah.
anywhere near where they are today. None of them.
Do you feel that? I take it you like Pavarotti a lot.
Yes, I do. I like both of them. I like
Yeah.
Domingo also. I like Pavarotti. You know, it's very. There's such an argument, isn't there, between the two of them?
Well, that's artificial. I mean, that's created by the media.
Yeah.
You think so?
Well, it's like the Carlos Tebaldi. You know,
Yeah,
it sets up
yeah.
a conflict. It gets people talking. Like
Yeah.
people in my office who know that where I work, who know that I love opera, have come to me. They've had. One man came to me several months ago. He and his wife were having an argument over who was better, Pavarotti or Domingo. Now, these are not opera people, but but they're reasonably interested in things. They're educated people, and they watch television, and they have a compact disc player, and so I had to explain that good comes in many ways.
They're both good.
Yeah,
They're both different.
and you can't sort of.
You
can't
will
compare
exactly.
them.
It's like, even in showbiz, like Fred Allen and Jack Benny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
create these things.
Yeah.
Sure they do. They want to. They want them to be.
It creates interest. It gives
Sure
them
it does.
something to write about.
Sure it does. So they say there's a feud or something
Yeah.
like that. No, I think they're both good. I
Yeah.
enjoy them both. Different kinds of singers. I think that Domingo sings with a different kind of a projection than Pavarotti
Yeah.
does.
That movie that he made, Carmen, when he
Yeah.
made that into a movie
With
with
that-
Domingo and McGinnis Johnson, I thought
She
that
was
really
fabulous.
good.
She's a terrific.
That was
Oh,
really
I
good.
think
performer.
she's
A lot of
fab.
personality.
Yeah.
Now there's a girl who's got a lot of
Yeah.
chutzpah. She's really got.
She was a perfect Carmen. I
She's excellent. I like her very much. I think she's a wonderful performer. And of course, Scotto was always of the singers of today, the only
Yeah.
kind that I would put her in the class of the Tebaldis and the Muzios,
Yeah.
because she has that school of singing that I tell my students. I said, when you listen to somebody like Scotto, I said, don't listen to the fact maybe your voice wobbles here and there, but when you listen to the nuances
How about
and the
Mirella Freni?
style. Oh, Mirella Freni, that's another one. I mean, see, I'm crazy about these two women. I heard Scotto, we heard her do La
Well, she
Sorangelica,
and,
the recording.
Pavarotti come from the same.
Oh, I mean, to me,
Modena.
this is the
Yeah.
kind of singing I like.
What did you think of Sills?
I think Beverly has a beautiful voice, and I think she lost her voice too young. I don't
Yeah.
understand why she lost her voice before
blew-
she was 50.
Yeah, she blew it early.
I don't know why, but
Well, she's
she
oversang.
sang too many things.
Yeah,
She never stopped. She
packed it all in.
packed it all in. I think she and did a lot of things she shouldn't have done, probably,
Yeah, yeah.
too. Sang a lot of things that she shouldn't have sang. I knew her before she was,
Yeah,
known,
anybody. Yeah.
because my pianist's wife played for her. Ruth Sumner used to play for her at the Hourglass. And Bill Sumner was my pianist. I lived at 55 Central Park West at the time. And Bill would come up, and we would be, every morning I worked from 11 to 1, every day. And he would tell me about this girl. He said, there's a girl singing at the Hourglass that Ruth plays for. She's got a beautiful voice. Her name is Beverly Sills. He said, she's young. She's about 21 or 22 at that time. He said, and she's got...
You've known her a long time.
Yeah, very lovely voice. And then, of course, she was working with Liebling, and I had worked
Yeah.
with Liebling. But I never knew Beverly then, until later on I got to know her socially, because we had a mutual friend who used to give big parties. And when she went to get married, I was with her that night. She says, I'm leaving, I'm going to Cleveland, I'm going to get married. And she wasn't very young then. She was, I
Yeah.
think, in her 30s.
Yeah, early 30s. Yeah.
Early 30s.
And it was when she substituted for you
That she says that in her, she said in her book, she substituted for me. At the time, Dorothy Kirsten would come up to Mike's office, and she'd say, give me Della Chiesa's crumbs. She's got all the stuff, she's got all the programs and everything, give me her crumbs.
What did you think of Kirsten?
I thought she had a very lovely voice, a very clear, kind of a clear voice. What did
Yeah.
you think of her?
Just that, a little on the brittle side.
Brittle,
Yeah.
brittle voice. I'm not going to put that on my tape.
No, this is,
But,
we erased that.
oh,
Only good things.
yeah, but I mean, she
Yeah.
was another one who made it.
What did you, Stieber, was she anybody that you?
I thought she had a lovely voice.
Yeah.
I liked